All right, let's go live. Hey, everybody, Chuck Holton coming to you from Vanadzor, Armenia. That's back behind me. You see Vanadzor back in the, I'll get out of the way. That's a real nice view. Matter of fact, let me show you the view a little bit. This is Vanadzor. It's a beautiful city, even though it's got a lot of abandoned buildings. It's kind of like the Detroit of Armenia, but the mountains surrounding are amazing on both sides. And of course, we got a great sunset back there right now. So that's cool. I hope you are doing well. We just got off a great phone call with our supporters over on Locals and enjoyed talking to them face to face and hearing their comments and questions and that sort of thing. Today, I'm going to be talking about what's going on with this peace deal that was signed in Washington, D.C., and peace deal or lack thereof, really. And I'm going to be breaking down a little bit of what got us to this point and the history of the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and then talk about what the hope is for the future. Now, before I do that, let me just say thank you to our sponsors. This episode is being sponsored by Preserve Gold, and I've been working with them for a while now, and Preserve Gold is doing great work. They are very helpful in where'd that go? Whoops, hang on a second. I was looking for my notes. Do you know, there are tons of people who will tell you that crypto is the new gold. And these are usually some hipster that's got a man bun and is, you know, trying to bum $5 off you because he's broke. But there are people that have made a fortune with crypto without a doubt. And I'm not knocking crypto per se, but look, it is not gold. Crypto is not gold. And so if your store of wealth can vanish because somebody in a hoodie hacks the blockchain, that's not a store of wealth. It's a garage sale. Gold doesn't glitch. It doesn't freeze because a server farm in Estonia went down. It's just gold. It's heavy, shiny, permanent. And right now, spot gold is about $3,360 per ounce. That means you can carry 10 grand around in your pocket like a few quarters. And that's real value that you can, save in your retirement plan or save under your bed if you want to. Now, Preserve Gold makes it easy for you to diversify your investments into gold. I've been diversifying into gold for years. And listen, they don't give you any buzzwords at Preserve Gold. They don't give you any runaround. No cartoon monkeys, just real gold. And they sell silver and platinum and palladium and everything as well. And so for people who like their wealth to actually exist in real life, take a look at Preserve Gold and text Chuck to 50505. If you qualify, you could score up to $15,000 in bonus gold or silver. So forget about chasing that next hipster stable coin or whatever, and stick with the metal that's been money since before hipsters were even cool. Text Chuck to 50505 right now, and or you can go to the website that is listed here on the screen. All right, back to our video. Now, here in Armenia, there are two camps of people in terms of their thoughts about this supposed peace deal. So before we talk about them, let's talk about what is actually in this deal that was signed in Washington, D.C. anyway, right? This peace summit that was put on by President Trump with the president of Azerbaijan and the prime minister of Armenia, was designed to bring peace in this region, but they did not sign a peace deal. They signed three things. So let's go through what those three things were. Number one, they signed, Azerbaijan and Armenia signed, uh, an understanding that they are both going to pull out of the OSCE. The OSCE was a organization that was started to kind of try to keep the peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia back in the 1990s. And they've been doing a very poor job at that. And so it was in everybody's interest to just get rid of it, just scrap that whole thing. It's obsolete, it's out of date, and let's start over with something new. That was the first thing they signed. That's not a peace deal. That's actually getting rid of the last peace deal. The second thing they signed was between the United States and Armenia, and that was a deal that would allow the United States and Armenia to jointly develop a road between Azerbaijan and their exclave of Nakhichevan. I should show you on the map what that is, because that's kind of important. So let me pull the map up here while I'm talking. It's about 29 miles across Armenia to get from Azeri Nakhichevan to Azerbaijan proper. And they never had a good way to get across there. And it was more than just about, we want to go visit relatives or we want to, send products over there. It was more about Nakhichevan actually touches Turkey. And so Azerbaijan is landlocked by Armenia and has a real hard time getting its oil and other petroleum products out to market. They have one pipeline that goes across Georgia, but they can't go through Russia. And they got the what is that, the Caspian Sea or whatever, that is on the eastern side of Azerbaijan, so they can't go that way. And they can't go through Iran very easily, and Armenia wouldn't let them through either. So they really want to be able to get their oil and gas out to Western markets. Western markets tremendously need and want that oil and gas right now, because they're no longer buying that stuff from, they're no longer buying that stuff from Russia. So that being the case, the Western world has been like, yeah, we're all on board with the peace deal that allows Azerbaijan to get more oil out to us. And okay, that makes sense. But okay, let's take a look at the map here. Take it off studio mode. Now, this is Vanadzor, where I am in Armenia. We'll zoom out here and give it a second to load. Come on. Come on. Slow internet. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're going to zoom out a little more so we can see the whole region. We got Armenia in the middle, Azerbaijan over here on the east, Georgia to the north, Turkey to the west, and Armenia right here. Now, if you zoom in on this, on Armenia, you see this southern part of Armenia here. This is called the Sunik province, and it drops all the way down to the Iranian border. This is Iran down here. This is the place that they're talking about needing a road. This is Azerbaijan. This is Azerbaijan, and they can't get between each other. So Azerbaijan has been pushing for this for a long time. And Armenia has been like, heck no, you guys suck. We're not giving you access through our land, our sovereign territory. And Azerbaijan bided its time and grew its military forces until it had a much larger military than Armenia, and then they attacked. And they drove all the Armenians out of let's see, juice that up a little bit, drove all the Armenians out of the Nagorno-Karabakh district, which is over here. And I'm gonna Nagorno-Karabakh. Okay, so let's see if it'll, oh shoot, I was hoping it would highlight it, but it didn't highlight it. Anyway, that's right here, just to the east of the Armenian border. But it was kind of like Nakhichevan. It was a exclave full of Armenians that didn't have an easy way to get back and forth to Armenia. They wanted to become part of Armenia proper, and Azerbaijan wasn't having that. So Azerbaijan kicked all 120,000 people that were left there out in September 2023, sent them packing into Armenia. Now they're living as internally displaced people inside Armenia. And Azerbaijan said that land is going to be ours now forever. And they say that is historic Azeri land. The problem is the Azeris' history only goes back to 1917. And if you visit that land that they're talking about, it is totally covered with Armenian writing. I mean, there's Armenian writing, ancient writing, chiseled into every stone building, church, school, cemetery, you name it. And this is not going back hundreds of years, it's going back thousands of years. So it's obvious that Armenians have lived in that land for millennia. The Azeris have not. But that doesn't matter to the Azeris. They took it over by force, and they started to bulldoze the churches, bulldoze the monasteries, bulldoze the cemeteries, anything that had Armenian writing on it, they're getting rid of to try to erase that history and try to rewrite it and say that Azerbaijan was, the ones who lived there. But they didn't. Now, the deal that President Trump made was there is already a road down here. Actually, you can see the road right there. But to expand that road, because it's only 2 lanes, and allow and open it up and allow trucks from Azerbaijan to drive the 29 miles across Armenia into Nakhichevan, and to put a pipeline across and a railroad across as well. And the Azeris call that the Zangezur corridor. Now, the Armenians don't like to call it a corridor. Not really sure why, but whatever you call it, it's going to be an open highway of commerce across the southern border of Armenia. Now, some Armenians look at that and say, I think we're going to make some money on that deal. With all that trade, all that commerce coming through our southern border, we got to get some money out of that somehow. That's got to be good for our countries, and maybe we can even normalize relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey and open our borders there. Because right now, Armenians can go to Turkey, but they can't drive directly, even though the Turkish border. Okay, I think we're back. We got a better connection now. Sorry about that. Okay, so I believe I'm back. We'll see if it says I have a connection anyway. Let's get. Okay, we're gonna try this. The internet here. Okay, we're gonna try this. The internet here is kind of sucking wind, so looks like I'm back. I'm not giving you good video because I'm gonna have to change my internet provider here. So let me turn on my hotspot, and it's gonna cut out for just a second, and it'll come. There we go. Okay. Now it's getting connected. All right. Yeah, it took a second. Sorry about that. We are in Armenia after all. Okay, so where was I? So the third thing that Armenia and Azerbaijan signed was a memorandum to agree to sit down and talk about a framework for a potential future peace deal. So it's not a peace deal, it's just an entry to talk about a peace deal. And they're going to have a hard time coming to an agreement on an actual peace deal, because Azerbaijan is asking for some pretty serious stuff. Like, Armenia has to change its constitution, for one thing. So Azerbaijan is saying we're not going to have a peace deal until Armenia changes its constitution. Like, that, can you imagine somebody coming to America and saying, well, we'll do a deal with you, but you have to get rid of the First Amendment? Yeah, it's just like, yeah, no, not going to happen. So there are a lot of Armenians who believe that their president just sold them out. And there are a lot of Armenians here in Armenia who say, well, maybe this actually could work. And so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. It makes sense that there are people who are going to be upset and people who aren't, because just like the United States, Armenia has left-wing people and right-wing people. Now, Armenians that live in California tend to be more to the leaning to the left because they live in California. People that live here in Armenia tend to be a little more conservative on balance. Okay, there are plenty of people that are liberals in Armenia, but I'm just saying in general, people in Armenia tend to be a little more conservative on balance. So it seems to me, now I'm sure that my Armenian friends might beg to differ, and that's okay, but it seems to me from talking to Armenians here in Armenia, in this town of Vanadzor behind me, that it's most likely that most of the Armenians I talk to say they're cautiously optimistic. And it is a little bittersweet for them, because they realize that there was nothing in any of these uh, memorandums that they signed that said anything about the 150,000 Artsakis being able to go back to their land that they were pushed out of by Azerbaijan in 2023. There's nothing about the release of the 80 or so hostages that Azerbaijan is still holding from that war, from 2023. And the world body saying nothing about those hostages. And that it is bittersweet in that it feels like it's kind of rewarding a dictator, Aliyev, for being a dictator, for, aggressing against his neighbors. So I'm going to play for you, first of all, President Trump explaining the route and what it's called, which I think is kind of funny. And then we'll come back and talk about that. So listen.
Very importantly, we have also resolved the key issue that foiled previous negotiations. This declaration establishes what they are calling a great honor for me. I didn't ask for this. The Trump route for international peace and prosperity, which is a special transit area that will allow Azerbaijan to get full access to its territory of Nakhchivan while fully respecting Armenia's sovereignty.
So there are a lot of people who are looking at this and saying, well, Azerbaijan gets everything they want out of this. What does Armenia get out of this? Like, well, I can give you the answer to that. What Armenia gets out of this is they don't get invaded, at least not in the short term. Right now, they don't get invaded. So they've been able to hopefully hold off an invasion by Azerbaijan to some later date, at the very least. That's what Armenia gets out of this. And that feels like a bitter pill to swallow, because it is, in a manner of speaking, it's a loss for Armenia. Armenia would love to have the military might to be able to stand up to Azerbaijan, push them back out of the Nagorno-Karabakh district, and allow the Armenians who have lived there for millennia to move back to their homes. But the reality on the ground is that Armenia's military is much smaller and weaker than Azerbaijan's military. Now that's changing and changing fast, but they're still weaker. And so they would likely lose any war that started between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And they're going to have to get used to the fact that the Azeris are going to be driving trucks across Armenian land back and forth into Nakhichevan. Now, again, hopefully that leads to more openness, and that openness will lead to increased prosperity for everybody. But those things are just hopes right now. And, you know, there are a lot of Armenians that are still very bitter about losing. Azerbaijan killed 5,000 Armenian men in 44 days of war back in 2020, in September 2020. That's how I found out about Armenia, was from that war. So President Trump is trying to put a win in his box. He's trying to get a win on the board. Somewhere, anywhere, I want to bring some peace. He did okay between Thailand and Cambodia. That one was kind of a layup. That was fairly easy because both sides really didn't want to fight. He's worked out something between Congo and Rwanda or something like that. Congo and somebody. That's okay. That shouldn't be too difficult. This is another one that's two countries that are much smaller and weaker than the United States, that would love to have more trade with the U.S. And in the case of Armenia, at least, they desperately need a big brother that will take care of them in this region, because Russia is not doing that anymore. So since Russia is not doing that anymore, Armenia feels like it really doesn't have much choice. Now, what's in it for America? Well, America is going to invest a lot of money into building this corridor. Now, that tells me they've got to have a plan for making that money back. I don't know what that plan is. That hasn't been enumerated yet. But somehow, some way, the United States is hoping to make a profit from this at some point. Right now, it's going to be a lot of sunk cost on the part of the U.S. taxpayer. But millions of those taxpayers are actually Armenian. And so we'll just say that we're going to take the Armenians' American taxes and use that to pay for the road down in Sunik province. That'd be my guess. That's what I would do. It also kind of pokes Russia in the eye, because Russia has pulled out of this region. Armenia has pulled out of Russia's strategic military alliance. Their answer to NATO is called the CSTO. And Armenia pulled out of the CSTO because they weren't getting anything out of it. And so now they're leaning more toward the United States. There are American troops here in Armenia every week. Did you know that? Did you know we've got, I don't know, about 80 US troops in Armenia? And that what they're doing is training the Armenian military on American military strategy and tactics, because the war in Ukraine has shown everybody that Western military tactics and strategy trumps Russian military tactics and strategy every time. So everybody is wanting to get more American weapons and know-how for their militaries, and that includes Armenia. Now, let me play for you the second part of this, another quote here, where President Trump says, these two nations have agreed to stop fighting forever, forever and ever and ever. Here we go.
Country of Armenia and Azerbaijan are committing to stop all fighting forever, open up commerce, travel, and diplomatic relations, and respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity, so importantly. And I just spent a lot of time with these two men. I think they're going to have a great relationship. You want to know the truth?
Gag.
They didn't see each other that much, but they probably will. I think they're going to have. I think you two are going to have a great relationship. I have
No.
no doubt. And if you don't, call me and I'll straighten it out. Okay.
Yeah. So President Trump is, like, well, these two countries are going to stop fighting forever, and now they're friends. They used to be enemies until they walked into my office, and now they walked out of my office and they're friends. Well, you can tell by the body language looking at both of those guys. Those guys are not friends, and you shouldn't be friends with somebody like Ilham Aliyev. Now, President Trump went on to praise Aliyev and say these are great men, they're great leaders, they're good people. I've gotten to know them, and Aliyev is a good guy. And then he turned to Aliyev and he said, so how long have you been in leadership? And Aliyev said, 22 years as president of Azerbaijan. And he says, well, see that? President Trump says, see that? 22 years. He's got to be doing something right. Obviously, he's a good leader or he wouldn't have been there for 22 years. Well, no, actually. Listen, Ilham Aliyev took over the presidency from his father. His father rigged a fake election and got his son elected as the president. Aliyev has since consolidated power around himself and is essentially president for life. The human rights abuses that Azerbaijan has engaged in over the last 30 or 40 years could fill 100 documentaries. And I put actually quite a bit about some of those atrocities in my documentary called Armenia, A Love Story. And if you want to get a copy of that, you can go watch it at some point. If you're a supporter at chuckholton.com, you can go watch that anytime you want. I think you can get a link to it. If not, send us a message and we'll send you the link to the movie if you're a supporter. So, folks, let me just ask you to do me a favor and go hit that like button. Over 1,000 people watching, but not that many likes. So either you're not liking what I'm talking about or you just haven't thought of it yet. And I know that you need to be reminded. Everybody needs to be reminded to hit the like button. So do me a favor and do that. That'll help the channel to get out there to people that haven't seen it before. So then Ilham Aliyev appointed his wife as the vice president. He has jailed all sorts of journalists inside Azerbaijan. As I mentioned before, he's got 80 or so Armenian hostages that they've been holding for years in there. And there's been reports of tortures and all sorts of stuff. The Freedom Index ranking of Azerbaijan is lower than that of Iran. So that should tell you pretty much all you need to know about Azerbaijan and about whether or not Nikol Pashinyan would want to be friends with somebody like Ilham Aliyev. He doesn't. He doesn't want to be friends with him. And now they shook hands and they, bit their tongues. And the saddest part of this whole press conference came right at the end, and I didn't get a chance to make a clip of it to show you. But they started taking questions. And the first several questions had nothing to do with Armenia and Azerbaijan. They were directed at President Trump about the war in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine. Where is the meeting between you and President Putin going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And President Trump, to his credit, kept saying, look, let's talk about that later. This is a big deal here. I want to really focus on the Azeri Armenia thing, but the press wasn't really having it. And then one journalist stood up and said, Mr. President, what about the hostages that Azerbaijan is holding? And will there be any right of return for the Armenians who were driven out of their homes in 2023? Boom, like actually asked the question that all of the journalists should have been asking. And President Trump was like, yeah, skip right over that. Next question. And they just ignored it. Just 100% ignored it. Nikol Pashinyan ignored it. Did not speak up and say, hey, no, this is an issue. We need to know about this because we got 150,000 people in our country that are refugees because you pushed them out of their homes. But if he had talked like that to Ilham Aliyev, they probably wouldn't have got the deal signed. And so Pashinyan bit his tongue, kept his mouth shut, and they signed this agreement. But it is not a peace deal. And I want you to tell your friends, I want you to help people understand it is not a peace deal. Okay. Now, a lot of people wonder, well, why should we support Armenia over Azerbaijan anyway? Armenia doesn't have anything to offer the United States. Armenia doesn't, they don't have any natural resources that we need or anything like that. Uh, so, why would we support Armenia? And so again, as I always say, you should start in making a decision like that on which side to support in a conflict around the world by looking at it in moral terms. And in moral terms, the Armenians didn't attack Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan attacked Armenia. And Armenia lost, kind of, I mean, they lost, but they were still the ones that were being aggressed against. So for that reason, I would support Armenia alone. Because it's wrong to attack your neighbors. Period. End of story. So that's step one. Step two is the fact that Armenia is the world's first Christian nation. And I think Christians in America should stand up for Armenia because a lot of people here in Armenia are our brothers and sisters in Christ. And I'm going to show you, there was a delegation that came to Armenia last week, and I went down and spent a day with them, going around and meeting with the French ambassador and the minister of security and the minister of foreign affairs. I don't know, all the whole bunch of people that we met with. And in those meetings, the delegates from the United States got a much better understanding about why Armenia matters. And so I want to play for you just a couple of quotes out of that, some interviews I did of the delegation so that you can hear what they had to say. Take a listen.
But even since then, the Soviet Union has pretty much defended these people. Now they've backed off from them because they're showing inclinations to move to the West. And so they're really an orphan out here waiting for somebody to pick them up, and America should be the one doing that.
I think this is America First region. This is the first Christian nation in the world. This is the only nation that's the light in this region. It's surrounded by Turkey. It's surrounded by Azerbaijan, which is aggressing upon them all the time and threatens to do so almost every day. And then they have Iran right below it. So this is a strategic America First space for America to be involved.
We've got brothers and sisters over here we need to be defending. We've got free countries over here that love America we need to be defending. But we've also got a historical connection to this country that needs to be known by all Americans.
What have you learned about the geopolitical?
Okay, so that woman that was speaking was Suzanne Grishman. She's the head of Mercury One group, Glenn Beck's thing. And the man that was speaking was David Barton, who's a American history author. He's taught college courses, and he's in charge of, or he founded the organization known as Wall Builders. So they're just two of the, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 delegates that came on this trip to Armenia. And you can hear how, they really got a sense for the fact that Armenians deserve our support, and we should stand up for Armenia. Israel should stand up for Armenia, but they don't. They actually are friends with Azerbaijan, and that rubs a lot of people the wrong way here in Armenia, and I don't blame them. It is very unfortunate that Israel chose not to make its decisions on who to ally with based on morality, but based on expediency. And in so doing became a trading partner with Azerbaijan traded them weapons for oil, and those weapons were used against Armenians here during the war by Azerbaijan. And so that's just the tangled web that is woven by these, by all these countries in this region. Okay, so I want to get to your questions. We're at 37 minutes, and I actually am going to have to go a little bit short today because I've got another live hit for Newsmax to do. So I got to get ready for that. So let's go to the question sheet. Amy was reminding me, I announced last night the winners of our 200K giveaway. We're celebrating reaching 200,000 subscribers. And so she sent me the list of that. And I just have to find it. I'm going to read it again for you now so that, because I don't think everybody that won was watching. So the 200K giveaway winners were Paige Kagan, Snicker Spain, Susan Wimmer, Ryan Pennington, ESL 13579, Patty Wetzel, Patricia Alonso, Katie B, UD4XB, Grizzy 297, Celeste Taylor, and Steve Relighter 4126. Okay, so you guys need to, if you heard your name called there or your handle, whatever, email amy@holtonnews.com to claim your prize. And I also wanted to mention that you see this beautiful sunset behind me. You too can come to Armenia and experience the wonders of this country. And you can join me and my wife on our upcoming tour next June from the 13th to the 23rd. And I highly recommend it. We've got a few slots left. So if you're interested, send Amy a note, amy@holtonnews.com, and say, I'm interested in Armenia, and she'll send you the link to get signed up. Okay, let's go to our questions. Mama Rissa says, is Azerbaijan Islamic? Yes, Azerbaijan is a primarily Shia Islamic state. And no, is that right? Shia or Sunni? Well, Iran is Shia, so Azerbaijan must be Sunni because they're allied with Turkey, and Turkey is Sunni. Okay, so that would be Sunni. But yes, they are Islamic, and they are doing the things that Muslims do in other places around the world, like bulldozing Christian sites and things like that, claiming things as their own that they didn't build. Ron Fay says, wasn't Azerbaijan accused by Iran of helping Israel during the run-up to the bombing of the Iranian nuke sites? Yes, they were. Azerbaijan, being a trading partner and an ally of Israel, allowed Israel to move perhaps weapons, explosives, drones, and people through Azerbaijan across their border into Iran, which is a very rugged and remote border area. Okay. And there are plenty of, but they also did that with the Kurds, because there are Kurds in Iraq and in Syria and in Turkey and in northern Iran. And so they also were helping the Israelis for that attack. Sean Squire says, this is just more lobbying propaganda. For which side? Who cares? It's extraction from the United States and costs us dollars. Well, I can't really argue with that, except to say you should care, just even if only on moral grounds. You should care when a country is invaded by its neighbor and they murder, rape, behead people, and take over their land, kick them out of their houses, ethnically cleanse the area, et cetera, et cetera. You should care about those kinds of things, and you should say something about it and stand up against it. And whether or not we ought to spend American tax dollars on it is another story, and I'll let you have your own opinion on that. Adrienne says, can we watch Newsmax live on YouTube? I don't think you can anymore, but maybe. I don't know. Somebody else answer that question, because I don't know. I've not watched them on YouTube. I think you have to have their app to watch them. They had a issue with YouTube or something. Stephen Waldner says, hello. Hello. Elizabeth K says, Israel helping their enemy. Well, Israel is, Azerbaijan is not an enemy to Israel. They're an ally. And it's kind of weird because they're primarily Muslim state, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's how that works. Okay. All right. So that's all the questions we've got. And that was easy. I appreciate all of you. I'm going to go and get ready for my next Newsmax hit. But thank you very much for watching the live tonight. I know it's a little bit short. Sorry about that. But I got a lot of things stacked up. And just to let you know, tomorrow I will be heading out with my son Nathan on a week-long trip to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. So stay tuned, because you're going to want to hear the lives that we bring you from out there. All right, it's going to be fun.